Man, this is John. I'm recording this. Well, I don't even know who will ever hear this, but if you're out there, you need to know. It started with a flu, they said. Just a bad flu. Then the news started showing people acting weird. Really weird. Like rabid animals. I was on my way home from my shift at the warehouse, just another Tuesday in Chicago. The L train was packed, same as always. Then, a guy started screaming. Not like, hey, watch it, screaming, but a guttural, blood-curdling sound. Before anyone could react, he lunged. At first, I thought it was a fight, a brawl. But then I saw it. His teeth, they were tearing into someone's arm. And the blood. Jesus. It was everywhere. People were panicking, shoving, trying to get away. I saw a woman, her face contorted in pure terror, clawing at the doors. Then, the guy who was bit, he turned. His eyes were cloudy, milky. He stumbled, but he got up. And he started moving towards the other passengers, that same low growl escaping his lips. That's when I knew. This wasn't a fight. This was something else. Something wrong. I managed to push my way off the train before the doors closed and the chaos fully erupted. Running, just running. I didn't know where I was going, just away from the screaming, the guttural sounds that were starting to echo from inside. I ended up in an alleyway, the stench of garbage and something, metallic, thick in the air. I peeked around a dumpster and saw it. A man, his face half-eaten, his arms flailing, gnawing on a woman who was already gone. Her limbs were twisted at unnatural angles. It was like something out of a nightmare, but it was real. The sheer, unadulterated horror of it all, it's like a knot in my stomach that won't ever loosen. You see things on TV, you hear stories, but seeing the complete breakdown of everything you thought was normal, it breaks you. The sounds were the worst. The gnashing, the tearing, the moans that weren't human anymore. I spent that first night huddled behind that dumpster, trying not to breathe, trying not to cry. Every shadow seemed to move, every distant siren was a potential threat. The next morning, the city was different. Empty streets, but not quiet. There were the sounds. The shuffling, the groans. And then, the people. Or what used to be people. They were shambling, uncoordinated, but driven by some primal hunger. I saw a pack of them drag a fallen cyclist into a doorway, the sounds that came from that doorway. I can't even begin to describe them. Hunger. That's all they seemed to have. And that hunger was contagious. What would you do if you were me, trapped in that alley, with no food, no water, and the world falling apart around you? How do you even begin to survive when survival means doing things you never imagined? I've been moving, staying in the shadows, scavenging when I can. A half-eaten granola bar here, a bottle of water from a shattered store there. Every encounter is a gamble. Trust is a luxury I can't afford. I saw a group of survivors earlier today, trying to make their way through a main street. They looked desperate, ragged. And then I saw one of them, he was bitten, I'm sure of it. He was trying to keep up, but he was slowing them down. They didn't even hesitate. They just left him. Abandoned him to whatever was coming. It's a harsh reality, this new world. You have to be ruthless to live. I wanted to get this down. For whoever. If you're out there, please, if you're listening, just know I was here. And if you can, subscribe to the channel. Like this video. It's all I have left. Maybe, just maybe, someone will see this and know what happened. He watched them disappear over the ridge, a knot of shame and fear tightening in his gut. They were the strong ones, the ones who could outrun whatever was chasing them. He wasn't. Not anymore. His leg throbbed, a constant reminder of the failed raid on that abandoned store. They'd found more than they bargained for, and he'd paid the price. Now, alone, the silence of the woods pressed in, amplified by the distant, guttural cries that he prayed weren't getting any closer. He shifted, wincing, and scanned his meager surroundings. A fallen log offered some cover, and he collapsed behind it, pulling his tattered jacket tighter. He had a half-empty water bottle and a few dried berries. Not much. But it was something. He knew he had to keep moving, had to try and find some semblance of safety. But where? Every direction felt like a gamble. He spent the rest of the day moving in short, painful bursts, favoring his injured leg. The sun began to dip below the trees, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a beautiful sight that felt mocking given his situation. He found a small, dry cave, just large enough to curl up in. As darkness enveloped him, the sounds of the night became more pronounced. Rustling in the undergrowth, the hoot of an owl, and those unnerving cries, now seemingly closer. He gripped the sharpened stick he'd found earlier, its rough surface a poor substitute for a real weapon. Sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford, not really. He dozed fitfully, jolting awake at every new sound. His thoughts kept returning to the others. Were they safe? Or had they too met a grim end? He'd always believed in sticking together, in sharing what little they had. But this new world had a way of stripping away those niceties, leaving only the raw instinct for survival. He wondered if he'd ever see another human face again, a friendly one, at least. By morning, the gnawing hunger was almost unbearable. He knew he couldn't stay put. He had to find food, water, anything. He stumbled out of the cave, the morning mist clinging to him like a shroud. The woods felt different now, charged with a predatory energy. He moved slowly, ears straining, eyes darting. He spotted a small stream and practically crawled to it, gulping down the icy water. As he knelt there, a glint of metal caught his eye, half buried in the mud. He dug it out, a tarnished locket. He opened it. Inside, faded pictures of a smiling woman and a child. A pang of memory, sharp and unexpected. He didn't know who they were, but for a moment, he wasn't alone. He carefully tucked the locket into his pocket, a small, fragile connection to a life that no longer existed. He continued his desperate trek, the hope of finding survivors dwindling with every passing hour. The dried berries were long gone, and his stomach protested loudly. He saw a flash of movement in the trees ahead and froze, heart pounding. It wasn't one of them. It was larger, bulkier. And it was moving fast. He turned to flee, but his leg gave out. He fell hard, the impact sending a jolt of pain through him. He scrambled backward, trying to get to his feet, but it was no use. The creature loomed over him, its eyes glinting with something that looked like hunger. He raised his sharpened stick, a futile gesture. He closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path through the dirt on his cheek. He thought of the locket, of the smiling faces. He whispered a silent apology to them, and to himself. Then, there was only darkness. Man, this is messed up. I'm standing here, in what used to be downtown Boston, and it's gone. Just gone. It's like someone flipped a switch and turned everything into a goddamn nightmare. I remember seeing the first ones, the news reports, thinking it was some flu, some weird panic. Now it's just this. The screams. The gnashing. It's all I hear. I saw a woman, her face all torn, just gnawing on what was left of a guy in a suit. His briefcase was still there, spilled papers everywhere, like he was just trying to get to work. And she was just eating him. Like an animal. It's the sound that gets you, too. Not just the screams, but that guttural, wet sound they make when they're feeding. It sticks in your head. I'm hiding behind an overturned police car. It's dented, scratched, useless. Like everything else. I've been trying to stay quiet, trying to breathe, but my chest feels tight. Like it's going to explode. I saw a kid, maybe 7 or 8, turn. His mom was trying to pull him away, screaming his name, and then he just lunged. Bitten her. And then he was like them. His little eyes, they went blank, just this dead hunger. His mom, she just collapsed, sobbing. Then he went after her. I couldn't watch. I had to look away, but I could still hear it. God, the sound of it. It makes you want to just curl up and die. My stomach's been growling for what feels like days. I grabbed a half-eaten candy bar from a convenience store earlier, but it just made me feel sick. Everything smells wrong now. Like rot, and something metallic. Blood, probably. There's no one to trust. I saw a group of people trying to barricade themselves in a bank, and then I saw another group, a bigger one, just smash through. They weren't even trying to be smart about it, just sheer numbers, sheer savagery. And the ones inside? They didn't stand a chance. Some of them tried to fight, but it was no use. They were quickly overwhelmed. I'm alone. That's the real kicker. Completely, utterly alone. I keep thinking about my sister, Sarah. She loved to paint. Had a whole studio in our apartment. I can't think about it too much. It hurts too bad. I need to find a place to hole up, somewhere with a door, maybe a lock that actually works. But even then, how long can you hide? They're everywhere. And I'm so tired. So tired. And hungry. Always hungry. It's like a constant, dull ache. I have to keep moving. Just got to keep moving. But where? And for what? The rain had stopped, leaving the city slick and glistening under a bruised purple sky. I found an abandoned storefront, the glass shattered inwards. A good sign. Nobody would expect anyone to be in a place like this. Inside, it was dark and smelled of dust and something vaguely chemical. There was a counter, overturned chairs, and behind it, a storeroom. Bingo. A solid wooden door, and blessedly, a deadbolt that, after a bit of jiggling, actually slid into place. I slumped against the door, the wood cool against my feverish skin. For the first time in what felt like weeks, I wasn't in the open. I closed my eyes, trying to push away the gnawing hunger, the bone-deep exhaustion. The thought of Sarah, her paint-stained fingers and bright, laughing eyes, was a familiar pang. I squeezed my eyes shut tighter, focusing on the dull thud of my own heartbeat. Sleep, when it came, was a fitful, shallow thing, punctuated by the creak of the building and the distant wail of sirens. When I woke, the sun was a pale, watery disk in the sky. The hunger was back, fiercer than before. I needed water, too. My throat felt like sandpaper. I unbolted the door and peered out. The street was empty, a ghost town. I slipped out, my senses on high alert. I remembered a small convenience store a few blocks down, a place I'd raided once before for some canned goods. It was a risk, but the alternative was starving. The city was a graveyard of forgotten lives, each building a silent testament to what had been. The convenience store was as I remembered, ransacked but not completely stripped. I found a few dusty bottles of water and a can of beans that I hoped I could open with something I might find. My luck held. Tucked behind the counter, I found a sturdy metal pry bar. It wasn't pretty, but it would do. I sat back down in the relative safety of the storeroom, wrestling with the can. The sound of the metal scraping against metal was unnervingly loud in the silence. Finally, it gave way. The beans were cold and tasted like rust, but they were sustenance. As I ate, I heard it. A faint, rhythmic thudding, growing louder. They were searching. I froze, the can still in my hand. The thudding stopped just outside the storefront. My heart hammered against my ribs. I could hear muffled voices, then the scraping of something against the glass. They knew I was in here. There was no escape route, not from this storeroom. I gripped the pry bar, its cold metal a small comfort. The door to the storeroom rattled. I braced myself, my knuckles white. The deadbolt held, but it wouldn't last. I could hear them trying to force it. A splintering sound. Then another. I closed my eyes, picturing Sarah's face. It was all I had left. The storeroom door burst inwards, and blinding light flooded the space. I raised the pry bar, ready to fight, ready to do anything but be taken. The air in the city was thick with a smell I still can't quite shake, a cloying mix of rot, fear, and something acrid, like burnt plastic. I was on a rooftop in downtown Chicago, just a random guy named Mark, working a dead-end job in accounting, when the whole damn thing blew up. 1 minute, I'm checking my phone, the next, the street below is a goddamn charnel house. People weren't just sick, they were wrong. Their eyes were milky white, their skin stretched taut over bones like dried leather, and they were feeding. It wasn't eating, it was a ravenous, unthinking tearing of flesh. I watched a woman, her face still recognizable, gnaw at what used to be her neighbor. Her jaw worked with a sickening, disjointed rhythm. Another shambled past, arms outstretched, an empty, gaping maw where her nose should have been. The sounds, the guttural groans, the wet, tearing noises, the muffled screams from those still trapped, it was a symphony of the apocalypse. My stomach churned, and I felt a cold dread seep into my bones. This wasn't a movie, this was real, and it was happening now. My first instinct was pure, unadulterated panic. I wanted to scream, to run, to hide under my desk and pretend it wasn't happening. But then I saw them, a horde of them, pouring out of a bus, their gait jerky, unnatural. They were heading towards the building I was in. My brain, usually busy with spreadsheets and deadlines, suddenly kicked into overdrive, but it was a primal, animalistic survival mode. Trust no one. Fight or flee. And hiding wasn't an option anymore. The roof offered a vantage point, but also a dead end. I scrambled down the fire escape, the metal groaning under my weight. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every distant sound a potential attacker. I saw a couple, barricaded behind overturned cars, their faces etched with terror, before one of them lunged at the other, teeth sinking into an arm. The scream was cut short, replaced by that awful, relentless chewing. My mind struggled to process it, to reconcile the people I knew existed with the monsters they'd become. It was a brutal, visceral lesson in how quickly everything could be stripped away, leaving only the base instinct to survive. The city, once a symbol of progress and opportunity, had become a tomb. The silence that followed the guttural sounds was almost worse. It was the kind of silence that screams of finality, of things irrevocably broken. I stayed frozen for what felt like an eternity, the metallic tang of fear still thick in my throat. Then, instinct took over. I had to move, had to get away from that place, from that sound. My legs, shaky but functional, propelled me forward, deeper into the labyrinth of debris. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every creak of metal a harbinger of doom. I moved cautiously, peering around corners, my senses on high alert. The familiar streets were unrecognizable, twisted and mangled by the chaos. Fires still smoldered in distant buildings, painting the night sky with an eerie orange glow. I saw figures moving in the periphery, hunched and erratic, but I couldn't tell if they were survivors or something else. The uncertainty was a constant gnawing in my gut. My goal was simple: find others. Find anyone who hadn't succumbed to the change, anyone who still held on to a semblance of humanity. I remembered a designated safe zone, a place where people were supposed to gather if things went south. It was a long shot, a flicker of hope in an overwhelming darkness, but it was all I had. The journey there was a gauntlet. I had to navigate through collapsed structures, avoid open spaces where I might be seen, and constantly listen for any sign of danger. At one point, I heard shouting nearby. My first instinct was to run, to hide, but then I heard a voice, clear and human, not the distorted growls I'd been hearing. I crept closer, my heart pounding. Through a shattered window, I saw a small group of people huddled together, their faces pale and drawn, but alive. They were arguing, their voices hushed but urgent. I hesitated. Should I approach? Could I trust them? One of them looked up, their eyes scanning the darkness. For a terrifying moment, our gazes met. They saw me. The tension in the air was palpable. Then, slowly, one of them held up a hand, a gesture that could have meant anything. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the shadows. The reunion was subdued, a mixture of relief and terror. We were a handful, weary and scared, but we were together. We shared what little food and water we had. The talk was grim, the reality of our situation sinking in with every passing moment. The city was lost. Whatever had happened, it had changed everything. As dawn approached, painting the sky with a bruised purple, we made our decision. Staying here was suicide. We had to move, to find a place where we could rebuild, where we could just be. We set our sights on the outskirts, on the hope of finding untouched land, of a new beginning. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril, but for the first time since the nightmare began, there was a faint, fragile sense of purpose. We were survivors, and we would face whatever came next, together. As the first rays of dawn pierced the oppressive darkness, casting long, distorted shadows, our small group moved with a newfound, albeit desperate, resolve. The dilapidated farmhouse, our sanctuary for so long, now felt like a tomb, its silence a heavy accusation. We had survived the night, but the lingering stench of decay and the unsettling stillness outside were a constant reminder of the world that had been lost. Our journey towards the outskirts began with a hushed urgency, each step deliberate, each glance over our shoulders a testament to the ever-present danger. The desolation was profound, abandoned vehicles lay scattered like fallen giants, and the eerie quiet was broken only by the wind whistling through shattered windows, a mournful elegy for a lost civilization. Our trek led us through the skeletal remains of what was once a bustling town. We navigated through overturned market stalls, their meager wares long since looted or decayed, and past houses with doors hanging open, revealing glimpses of lives abruptly interrupted. Each abandoned dwelling was a poignant story of panic and flight. One house, in particular, stood out, a child's bicycle, still leaning against a porch, its bright paint faded and peeling, spoke volumes of an innocence brutally stolen. It was a stark reminder of what we were fighting for, a chance, however slim, to reclaim some semblance of normalcy for those who might come after. Our initial hope of finding a truly untouched sanctuary proved to be a naive dream. The periphery of civilization, while less populated, still bore the scars of the collapse. Yet, we pressed on, our determination fueled by the sheer instinct to survive. We discovered a small, overgrown nursery, its glass panes mostly intact, offering a surprising haven. Within its walls, a few hardy plants still clung to life, a fragile testament to nature's resilience. This became our temporary base, a place to rest, to gather our strength, and to strategize our next move. It was a small victory, hard won. Thank you for witnessing our journey. The world we inhabit is a harsh teacher, and its lessons are often brutal. Remember, preparedness is not an option, it is a necessity. Always have a plan, even when the future seems impossibly bleak. A simple, yet crucial, survival tip: familiarize yourself with local edible plants. Knowing what to forage can be the difference between sustenance and starvation. Most importantly, in moments of overwhelming despair, strive for calm. Panic is a swift executioner. Breathe, assess, and act with a clear mind. Your ability to remain composed, even when faced with unimaginable horrors, is your greatest weapon. We have shared our story, a fragment of the larger tapestry of survival. Your journey, like ours, is far from over. We encourage you to share your thoughts, your fears, and your own hard-earned wisdom in the comments below. Your insights are invaluable. If this narrative resonated with you, if it stirred something within, consider subscribing. By subscribing, you join a community of fellow survivors, ready to learn, adapt, and endure.